I don't really carry it as an everyday carry gun because it's very difficult for me to access the gun due to its short handle. Hello everyone and welcome back to AmmoMart.com. In our previous video we talked about the history and then the future of the 10mm auto bullet. Today I would like to talk about where it fits into the everyday carry world and if it actually does. I don't know of a lot of people that are actually carrying the 10mm as an everyday gun. I did for a while, and then I decided, not because of anything related to the caliber, that I just didn't like the guns that were available on the market at that time. And for me, it all comes down to one thing. This short handle makes it very difficult for me to access the gun smoothly, and if I needed it in an emergency, I think the outcome would be very much in doubt. Not caliber related, just size of the gun. Now, this is where I'm going to offend some 10mm fans, but that's okay. If you sit tight and listen to me for a second, I think this will make sense. What's really important for people to understand about the 10mm is you must research not only the type of ammo that you're going to put into your pistol, but who makes it. What are their pressures? What are their foot-pounds of energy they develop? Because more than any other caliber, this thing is subject to a lot of different interpretations about what the stock recipe is. I won't divulge what kind of powder they use and what the grain charge was because that's all proprietary and it's really not for me to do that. I'm just trying to leave people with the idea that if you think that your 10mm is substantially more powerful than your 40, probably isn't. It's incumbent upon the user to develop these things and research them on their own so you'll know if you need the power that the 10mm is supposedly able to deliver, that you actually have it. I think in most cases you'll find that you don't. Now, what's important is it is a very, very versatile bullet. You can get bullets that are made in the 77 grain sort of weight range, and they develop over 1,000 foot-pounds of energy according to the manufacturer, which again, I won't divulge. You can find all this out for yourself on the internet. The stock round at 165 or 180 typically runs somewhere between 550 and 650 foot-pounds of energy. And they go, oh, look, well, guess what? You can hop up a 40 round and do the very, very same thing. It has the capability of having substantial power, but unless you're an educated consumer, you actually might not have the power that you think you have. After the 40 Smith & Wesson came to be, 10mm lived on, like we said, thanks to the Colt Delta Elite, and eventually it became very popular in polymer striker-fired pistols. I actually have one of them here that's fairly new to the market. This is the Smith & Wesson M&P. It took them a long time to release this guy for whatever reasons, but it is very, very popular. I don't own this gun, it's a friend of mine's. We'll meet him later on in a few weeks. This comes optic ready. It's a very, very comfortable shooting gun for 10mm, but in my humble opinion, pretty much like a 40 unless you have the right bullet. I was shocked about how well this gun handles the recoil, but there might be a reason for that. Now, you can get the gun, obviously, or the caliber, in all steel hammer fire guns. This is one of my favorites, a SIG 220 Elite. Of course, like we said, hammer driven. This is about as good as all steel guns get, in my opinion, in the 10mm caliber. This is a fantastic weapon. Really, really a big fan of this guy. Before we go any further, one of the other things that caused the 10mm to resurge was Glock's Model 20. I've showed one on the show before. In fact, one of our first videos, I was shooting into some poultry. That caliber and that style of gun are very popular amongst people that hunt dangerous big game as a way to finish them off should they need to do that. Sometimes people call them woods guns, but that's up to you. And in fact, the Glock Model 20 is still issued to the Alaska State Patrol because of the type of dangerous game they might encounter as they go about their duties. Now, real quick, 10mm as it relates to an everyday carry gun can be kind of tricky. This is the Glock Model 29. It was probably one of the first very popular everyday carry guns in 10mm. And you'll notice one of the issues that you have, and in my opinion, the Glock 26 has the same issue for me, is I don't really carry it as an everyday carry gun because it's very difficult for me to access the gun due to its short handle in a hurry. To each his own. I know there are people that can do that very well. I just don't happen to be one of them. I prefer a little more handle on the gun, but having said all of that, I own this gun. It's very, very accurate, very popular amongst people that do carry the 10mm for everyday carry, and a fabulous weapon. As I said, one of the reasons why I kind of fell out of favor with the Glock 29 as a carry gun is I was also an owner of a Glock Model 20. And the Glock 20 is a big gun. So one day I'm kind of comparing the two because I was having trouble accessing my system with the Glock 29, and I sort of superimposed them on one another. And let me be clear before we continue, this is the new Smith & Wesson M&P 10mm, and I'm going to hold him up just by himself for a second, and you're going to see not a small gun. Not a small gun at all. I mean, it's a good size, full size gun, right? So then let's do this. If we put the Glock 29 next to it, I'm going to try to do this without getting my fat fingers in the way. You'll notice those guys are relatively the same size. What you lose is the handle. You're not really gaining anything in a loss of weight or barrel length or comfortability of any of those sorts of things. One of the downsides to the 10mm round is, just like with the 40, the slide has to be very substantial, which is weight, or they'll become cracked. The recoil management system, just like the 40, has to be substantial. Also weight, girth, mass. So at the end of the day, no matter what you do with your carry gun related to 10mm, it's going to be a pretty substantial hunk of metal. And what I don't particularly prefer is a short handle with all of that metal. I'd rather have a good purchase on the gun than not. Another choice, if you're into that for everyday carry, Springfield Armory recently released the Elite OSP model in 10mm, which people really do seem to like. I haven't had the experience of shooting that gun. I did handle it, and it seems to be a very quality, good gun, like you would expect from Springfield Armory. So anybody that has any feedback about that, let me know, because I would be curious to see how well people are shooting it and whether they like it or not. Everyday carry with 10mm is one thing to keep in mind. You typically do have a large reduction in magazine capacity because we're shrinking the gun down, and I'm going to reach in my pocket. Safety first, I didn't want to have live rounds laying around. You'll notice this is a Federal HydroShock in 10mm. It's a pretty good sized round, not only in diameter and length, and at some point when you're going for concealment, we're only going to be able to put so many of those guys in a tight space. Later on, probably in the next series of videos, we're actually going to take the 10mm out and shoot it and actually verify what kind of stopping power it has. And I'm going to be really curious to see what the stock 10mm round that you can buy over the counter actually does as compared to the 40. I know we're going to find them to be quite similar. And then I'm going to bring out some rounds that I know were actually more closely related to the original 10mm recipe. I think we're going to see a dramatic difference. If I have in fact exposed the 10mm, if that's the right word, I apologize. One of the things I would like to leave everybody with is this. You're not actually being duped by your ammunition company, no matter who that would be, no matter where you typically acquire your 10mm ammo. They are in fact following along with the FBI recipe. And because of modern technology, those guns still work. They're very reliable. You do have more than adequate stopping power. But as generations have wore on, I think that there's not really a terribly well-known thing, even amongst 10mm enthusiasts. This was not the original design. There is a substantial difference in power. So I look forward to your comments. We really have been appreciating your feedback and really have taken in all of your good suggestions. We hope to see you next time. Train hard and be safe.